It's great to be back here this week. And as you know, last weekend I was gone. I was up in the Diocese of Fargo for Deacon Riley's, now Father Riley's ordination to the priesthood. And so there's a credible witness. He actually got ordained to the priesthood, which no one really questioned that much either. And then I was able to make it to his hometown of Leamore for his first Mass on Sunday afternoon. And it was quite moving to see now Father Riley Durkin behind the altar and about 5 or probably like 7 or 8 other priests there as well, celebrating his first Mass. And always very powerful to see priests the first time raise up the host as the main celebrant. And needless to say, Father Riley's hands were shaking, and I thought maybe even the chalice, the precious blood, may overflow from all the shaking that was going on, but he made it through, and so we praise God for that. After the ordination, I took some vacation time and went out to western North Dakota and visited a buddy of mine out near Medora, North Dakota, Theodore Roosevelt National Park. But on Friday, of course, I had to come back. Which of course I was longing to. In most vacations, when I come back, it usually comes about Thursday or Friday. You start having that longing to come back and to see parishioners, especially now being here for 8 years. I definitely missed you. But this year, there's another reason I wanted to come back. There was actually another, not person, but another animal in my life, you could say. I think I wrote a bulletin article about this during the pandemic. Like I think everyone else in the world, I too decided to get a dog. But he's not a dog yet. He is a puppy. And his name is Bogey. People say, did you name him after like Bogart, whoever? I go, no, I named it after my golf game. A lot of bogeys. So he started his life over par. So there we go. But as I went out to North Dakota, I dropped Bogey off at my mother's house in West St. Paul. And so she had Bogey for a week. And of course, on Friday evening, as I'm driving back, I had to drive through a couple storms. As we know, they were pretty big storms. And as I pulled up here to St. John's, I had to drop some stuff off before going to pick up Bogey. My mom called, and she said, I can drop him off tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, or I can just keep him forever, whatever you want me to do. She didn't say forever, by the way, but I think she was pretty close. But by this time, I'd been gone from Bogey for a week, and so I thought, I really want to see him and get back into that routine of in the morning, I do my holy hour, he falls asleep, like I probably do sometimes as well in the holy hour, but we get back to that routine. So I drove out to West St. Paul to pick up Bogey. And on the way, being a solemnity, that it was already on Saturday, we kind of have the vigil the night before the Assumption, and I realizing I was really hungry, I decided to stop and get some food, Chipotle. And so I got at my mom's house and I sat down to eat. And as I sat down to eat, she was very smart. She said, if you sit down, Bogey's going to want to sit in your lap, so I'll hold him. So I sit down to eat, and sure enough, a chip falls to the ground. Now, my mom has another dog, and that dog's name is Mabel. Mabel is 14 years old. She's pretty much deaf. She's almost blind, and she can barely move. But as I was eating, a chip fell from my mouth, of course, onto the ground. And before I could bend over to pick it up, Mabel swept in. I've never seen her move so fast to get that chip. And so sure enough, she swept in and she's like, ha, I got this Tostito chip that I don't like, and spit it out of her mouth. But she was ready to eat the scraps off the table. Of course, this is what dogs do. They love to eat human food. They love to eat scraps, even if you don't want them to. Bogey is the same way. As soon as I place something down that's in his reach, he'll try to eat it. This happened as well in another solemnity when I had a Bismarck in my truck. Great donut, my favorite type of donut, and I set it down for 2 seconds, I think, to do something in the truck, and I looked over, and Bogey now is enjoying a Bismarck. So there you go, just like his owner, right? This is what dogs do. They love to eat the scraps. They love to always be ready to pounce. Whenever there's an opportunity, they're ready to consume. Of Of course, we have this beautiful gospel today as well, where we hear this woman, this Canaanite woman, which is very important to notice that she's Canaanite, who simply states to Jesus, "Please, Lord, even the dogs eat the scraps that fall from the table of their masters." And so this is very unique, but I'm going to say today what we should be like is dogs, in the sense of dogs in front of not the table, but in front of the altar, ready to receive anything that the Lord wants to give to us. And to be able to do this like a dog, I know that's interesting to say, that's very offensive actually at first, but we're able to do this like a dog. Not only are we willing to get those scraps, but we're going to be persistent, we're going to be patient, we're going to persevere always in doing this, just like Bogey does, just like Mabel does for my mom's dog, always ready to pounce. Once again, it's this interesting gospel in that this Canaanite woman comes to Jesus, and what happens? Her daughter is afflicted by a demon. We hear Canaanite, we can kind of jump over that. It's interesting, it's not just a Gentile, it's a Canaanite, which is even farther away from the Jewish religion, farther away from the Israelites than the Gentiles. I mean, you would have no association at all with a Canaanite woman. You just wouldn't. They're unclean. They don't believe in the same God. And yet she comes and not only asks Jesus to heal her daughter, but what does she say to him? She says, "Have pity on me, Lord, Son of David." So she is acknowledging that he truly is Christ. This is something that even now in Matthew's Gospels, the apostles are still struggling with. And yet this Canaanite woman acknowledges Jesus as Lord and states, "My daughter is tormented by a demon." And so what does Jesus do? He ignores her. Straight up ignores her. Why? Well, she's a Canaanite woman. You don't interact with them. So much so that then the disciples even go to Jesus and say, "Send her away, for she keeps calling out after us." And then finally, this is where Jesus starts to talk to her after the disciples tell him to do one thing, and he does the other thing. And he states to her, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." And this is how this woman responds, I think in a very beautiful way, that we are called to go to the Lord in prayer sometimes as well. She simply states, "Lord, help me." If that's your prayer some days, that's okay. We're saying, "Lord," so we're acknowledging him as God, "help me." So this is where we think. In every other gospel passage, this is where the Lord goes ahead and performs this miracle. But not in this instance. Once again, not only does he not perform a miracle yet, he offends her by calling her a dog. It is not right to take the food of the children and throw it to the dogs. You know, once again, you're 2020, we all have a certain affection for dogs. We treat them in a very good way, and sometimes an over-affectionate way as well sometimes. But 2,000 years ago, dogs were not affectionate. Dogs you may deal with a little bit, you may put up with a little bit, but they're unclean. They're not allowed even in your house usually. I mean, they're just gone. They're so far down the totem pole. And so for Jesus to say this, it's even more offensive than if I were to call you a dog today. It's more offensive 2,000 years ago. And so most people at this time would walk away, and they would go and say, "Can you believe that, Jesus? He called me a dog." But what does this woman do? She takes it, and she states to him very simply, "Please, Lord, for even the dogs eat the scraps that fall from the table of their masters." And she's saying, "That's fine. Call me a dog. I want what you have. I want your food. I want your grace. You are the only one that can heal my daughter who is afflicted by this demon. And I won't take any offense, and I will continue to persevere. I will continue to be patient. I'll continue to be like a dog waiting to pounce as soon as you throw me even a scrap. And then Jesus simply states, "O woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you wish." And immediately at that hour, her daughter is healed. Why? Because of her faith, because of her patience, because of her perseverance. She is able to get what she wishes. This is how we must be as well. We must persevere in our prayer over and over and over again, especially when we don't get the answer right away, or we don't get it after a week, or we don't get it after a year. To continue to go to the Lord and simply state, "Lord, help me." And so we come in front of not a table, we come in front of the altar, and let the Lord give to us all that we need, persevering in prayer. St. John Chrysostom had this to state about this gospel passage. When the woman herself cried out begging for this favor, he granted it. But at the beginning, when she first made her request, he did not answer. But after she had come to him, not once, not twice, but a third time, he gave her what she desired. By this, he was teaching us that he had withheld the gift not to drive her away, but to make that woman's patience an example for all of us. So what St. John Chrysostom is telling us here is that there is a spiritual meaning to Jesus' encounter with this woman. He isn't doing this to her in order to hurt her feelings or insult her. He is testing her faith, just like he tests our faith, in order to give us an example of patience and prayer, in order to give us an example of the fact that it's important to ask other people to help us, like the woman with his disciples. But at the end of the day, we need to be persistent in prayer. If we really want the Lord to answer our prayer, we need not to pray once and then give up. We need to persist even in the face of difficulties, even in the face of apparent silence of God. We need to entreat to him our whole life, to be patient in prayer, to be persistent, trusting that the Lord hears us, that he knows what is best for us, and that all those things will work together in his plan of providence to good for those who love him. Persistent, always present. And as I think of Bogey once again, it always, just brings me great solace as I go home and he's waiting for me, or I bring him to the office and he's waiting to get out of the kennel. Whatever it is, he's always there. He's always persistent. Let's be like that with God. Always present, always persistent, waiting not for the master to give us what we need, but for the God who truly loves us to give us what we need, knowing that he'll take care of us and he'll grant to us whatever we wish if it's in accordance with his will.